The chamber of the Galactic Council trembled under the weight of thousands of voices, layered across wavelengths, languages, and vocal structures too complex for a single species to comprehend. From beneath crystal domes and pulsing neural threads, delegates from over 100 worlds debated, protested, and jeered. But among them, the consensus was sharp and unrelenting. Humans are cowards, barked Relkor, representative of the Varnak Dominion. His mandibles clicked in irritation as his words echoed through the translator field. They hide behind weapons, machines, distance. They've never faced war as the ancients did, claw to claw, blood for blood. The accusation hovered like smoke in the chamber. Ramesh Iqbal, Earth's diplomatic envoy, stood alone in the center, eyes forward, spine rigid. She didn't flinch. Humanity does not need to prove itself by savagery. Several delegates hissed, others emitted low-frequency thrums of derision. But you claim sovereignty in council affairs, Relkor pressed. You demand a voice in war resolutions. We see no courage in your history, only avoidance, proxy wars, technology, shields. Our courage lies not in senseless death, but in survival. Then prove it. The chamber quieted. Ramesh narrowed her gaze. What do you propose? Relkor's claws scraped together with satisfaction. A trial. One human. One location. 10 of our elite warriors. No support. No escape. Survive for 10 cycles on Varos 7. Ramesh hesitated. A death match. A demonstration, he said coldly. The council erupted in noise. The proposal was extreme, unprecedented. But within the roar of protest, something deeper stirred. Curiosity. No species had ever truly seen humanity fight without ships, drones, or mass scale. Could one human truly face what the Varnak called a proving ground? The chairman of the council, an Arishon matriarch with a body like living glass, raised one delicate limb. Silence fell like a guillotine. If humanity accepts, she said, this trial shall be observed. The result will speak louder than prejudice. Ramesh's heart beat slow and cold. We accept. She didn't ask permission from Earth's military. She didn't need to. They already had someone in mind. Elias Rourke was a name very few outside Black Tier operations had ever heard. In records, he was listed as deceased. In reality, he'd simply stopped being counted. A former Navy SEAL, reforged under the Terran Tactical Reconnaissance Initiative, Rourke was not a man of medals or glory. He was a scalpel when humanity needed a sledgehammer. He stood in the shadows of a briefing chamber beneath Geneva Command, watching the footage from the council exchange. He didn't move, didn't speak, until the lights came up. Ramesh entered, alone, and looked him over. You know what this is, she said. Yes. You'll have no evac. I know. The Varnak are not playing. They never do. She set the datapad down in front of him. Terrain maps. Surveillance feeds. Estimated Varnak deployments. Climate data for Varos 7. Hot, humid, dense jungle terrain with unpredictable tectonic activity. 10 cycles. That's their unit for solar days. You'll need to adapt quickly. No aid, no contact. Just survive. Elias looked up at her, face unreadable. I don't plan to survive. She frowned. Excuse me. I plan to win. His voice wasn't arrogant. It was calm. A declaration of intent, not bravado. Ramesh exhaled slowly. They think we're soft. That we're all diplomats and drone pilots. They think we're afraid of pain. That we only fight when we outnumber and overwhelm. Then they've forgotten what we really are, Elias said. 2 days later, the drop craft punched through the atmosphere of Varos, 7 like a stone through silk. The jungle below swayed and shimmered in bioluminescent twilight, the sun barely cresting the horizon. A storm brewed in the distance, thunder rolling like the drums of ancient war. Elias stood at the rear hatch, rifle mag locked to his back, his body covered in adaptive camo that pulsed with micro-adjustments to blend into the terrain. No insignia, no call sign, just him. The hatch opened. He stepped out, boots sinking slightly into the moss and loam. The jungle accepted him without protest. In orbit, cloaked satellites began transmitting the event across the galaxy. Millions tuned in, some out of curiosity, others expecting a spectacle of failure. A single human, alone, against the Varnak's finest. A slaughter, many assumed. But Elias didn't move like prey. He disappeared into the foliage in seconds, erasing his trail, silencing even the breath between steps. Far from the drop site, 10 Varnak warriors deployed. Their armor gleamed, weapons engineered to their unique physiology, plasma claws, shock batons, curved vibroblades. Their leader, Drekhul, carried the bone trophies of 3 conquests. He snarled as he activated his internal comms. Begin the sweep. Push him east. I want his bones clean by cycle 3. They moved with practiced precision. Apex predators in a hunt they'd already won in their minds. But Elias was not running. He was waiting. The first contact happened on the second night. The jungle was thick with mist, insects chattering in bursts. One of the Varnak split from his squad to scout a thermal anomaly. He found it. A heat signature, too perfect. He didn't find the tripwire. The detonation was silent. Compressed gas. A flashbang filtered through subsonic frequencies designed to disable Varnak inner ear equilibrium. The warrior dropped. Elias appeared from the dark, blade already drawn. No ceremony. No gloating. 3 seconds. Strike, twist, silence. He left the body hanging upside down, tied with vines, a knife buried through the chest, and pinned to a tree with Terran characters carved into the hilt. Begin. The council saw it in real time. Some gasped. Others leaned forward. Ramesh watched from Earth Command, lips pressed tight. They'll understand now, she murmured. Drekhul did not take the message well. By cycle 3, 2 more were down. One with a collapsed trachea from a pitfall trap. Another bled out after stepping on a chemically treated vine lash that lacerated his calf. No energy weapons used. No long-range kills. All intimate. All close. The Varnak had studied Terran war theory. They had not studied men like Elias. On the 4th day, they caught a glimpse of him. Barely. A flicker between trees, a shape in the mist. They opened fire, plasma rounds scorching the underbrush, lighting up the night. But there was no body, just a recording device, looped with a single phrase in Varnak dialect. You should have brought more. Drekhul howled, and across the stars, the laughter that once filled council chambers turned quiet. Because in the silence, in the efficiency, in the restraint, there was something worse than rage. There was a calm, methodical fury, and it was coming for them. The jungle breathed around him, alive with sounds not meant for human ears. Insects with wings like crystal buzzed through shafts of filtered light. Vines coiled and uncoiled as if sniffing the air. Somewhere in the distance, a predator gave a low, bone-vibrating growl. Elias Rourke moved through it all like mist. The camouflage coating on his gear shifted in minute gradations, blending seamlessly with the mottled greens and earthen browns. He didn't rush. He didn't panic. He watched, waited. The Varnak had fanned out in an expanding crescent, hunting with the precision of apex predators. Their armor, black, edged in crimson, gleamed with sensor nodes and reactive plates. Each warrior carried a plasma repeater that could melt stone. But Elias wasn't stone. He was the gap in their radar, the silence between their heartbeats. He spotted one at a distance, stationary, armored bulk crouched beside a stream bed. The warriors scanned the tree line, unaware of the eyes that watched from above. Elias lay prone on a thick, mossy branch 20 feet off the ground, motionless. He had tracked this one for 3 hours, noting his routine, the places his gaze skipped, the moments he exhaled just a little too long. Elias moved only when the wind did, descending with the quiet confidence of someone who had made nature his weapon. He landed behind the Varnak and slipped a carbon fiber blade through the narrow junction of neck plate and shoulder guard. A soft hiss, a twitch, and then stillness. Elias caught the warrior's body before it hit the ground, lowered it silently into the undergrowth, and reclaimed his knife. From a pouch, he extracted a small, polished mirror, angled it toward the treetops, and confirmed what he needed. Drone cluster eliminated or distracted. No one had seen. He didn't celebrate. He didn't speak. He melted back into the foliage. One less threat between him and complete control of the terrain. In the Galactic Council chamber, the tension was rising. 3 surveillance drones had gone offline in less than 6 hours. The Council's technicians offered theories: interference, environmental hazards, system failure, but they all sounded increasingly like excuses. The Varnak delegate had gone quiet. His smirk faded into clenched silence. Another feed, still intact, showed the remaining warriors speaking in low tones. Their movements had shifted, less confident, more reactive. They scanned shadows too often. They fired at sounds too small. They bunched together where they once split off to cover more ground. Back on Varos 7, Elias began Phase 2. He found a fallen log, hollowed and dry. From his kit, he extracted a small canister of compound thermite and a coil of microline. With surgical efficiency, he laid a trap. Not a killing one yet. A message. Something primal. He planted the Varnak's helmet from his earlier kill on a spike inside the log. The eyes glowed faintly. Around the base, he smeared a thick line of native resin, sticky and pungent. The smell would draw predators. The heat signature would draw sensors. The trap would disorient both. He watched from a distance as 2 Varnak warriors approached it, weapons drawn. One step closer, cautiously, eyes on the helmet. Then Elias triggered the thermite. The explosion wasn't large, but it was bright and hot. It blinded sensors and scorched the immediate clearing. In the chaos, Elias flanked them from the opposite direction and opened fire, controlled 3-round bursts. One Varnak went down. Armor breached along a previously weakened vent. The other fled, injured, crashing through the jungle with a hiss of pain. Elias didn't chase. That wasn't the goal. Not yet. In space, the council chamber buzzed with conflicting voices. Some species found honor in his methods. Others recoiled. He's not fighting. He's hunting, someone said. Is that not what we do in war? Counter a representative from the Kravok Triad. He doesn't engage in open combat. Relcor spat. He avoids confrontation. He neutralized 2 of your best in less than a day. Ramesh replied, unmoved. What would you call that? Cowardice. No, said the Arishan Queen again. Intelligence. Elias continued his work with mechanical discipline. He moved at night. He mapped terrain by scent and sound. His helmet fed him just enough data to read heat signatures without relying on electronics that could give away his position. He ate sparingly, hydrated with filtered jungle condensation, and slept in 30-minute intervals suspended above the ground in a sling net. Each rest was earned. Each movement had a purpose. By the end of the second full day, 4 Varnak were dead. 2 traps, 1 ambush, and 1 taken down with a thrown spear crafted from alien hardwood and his own steel knife lashed to the tip. The warrior had bled violet across the roots of a tree older than Earth civilizations. Elias left no body behind. He removed identifying gear and left only insignias. A broken gauntlet placed on a high branch, a bloodied weapon tied with jungle reeds. The effect was immediate. Surveillance feeds showed the Varnak patrol pattern breaking down. They no longer advanced in formation. They took refuge in caves during daylight. Two argued, barely contained aggression on the verge of panic. Elias watched them from above, eyes calm behind his visor. These were no longer hunters. They were being hunted. The jungle had accepted him. It betrayed them. At dusk, a drone caught his silhouette for the first time. Only briefly. The council feed froze on the image. Just a glimpse of him standing in a clearing, backlit by firelight, armor streaked in mud and blood, rifle slung across his back like a hunter returning from a kill. He said nothing. He didn't need to. The camera static resumed, and he was gone. Billions across the galaxy saw it. Memes formed. Messages spread. The words repeated across thousands of languages. They sent just one. The injured Varnak tried to contact command. His message was intercepted. Elias spliced the signal, altered it slightly, and rebroadcasted it on open channels. Gasping breaths, panicked words, and the undeniable tone of fear. He knew it would reach the council. He wanted it to. The psychological warfare escalated. Elias howled like one of the jungle predators during the next moonrise, a low guttural cry, followed by 3 loud gunshots in rhythmic intervals. A call, a ritual, a warning. The Varnak didn't respond. In the council chamber, Relkor finally broke his silence. Extract them, he demanded. This is an illegitimate contest. We were not informed of his tactics. No one told you to walk loudly, Ramesh said. He walks alone. You sent 10. Are you saying that's unfair? The request for extraction was denied. The challenge must run its course. That was the rule. As night deepened, Elias sat beneath a massive root structure, legs crossed, rifle resting in his lap. He didn't need to speak. His breathing was steady. He ate a protein strip, sipped water, then closed his eyes for another brief rest. The jungle had accepted his rhythm. He could hear one of the remaining Varnak, perhaps the injured one, struggling somewhere far off. They were being isolated by design. Elias would give them no pattern, no logic to follow. Only consequence. When he opened his eyes again, the stars above him had shifted. He smiled faintly. 4 down. 6 to go. And the game had only just begun. A dense fog rolled over the jungle floor as dawn broke on Varos 7, veiling the terrain in a ghostly shimmer. Moisture clung to every leaf, vine, and root, muting sound and reducing vision to meters. In this shifting veil, Elias Rourke moved as if born to it, stepping between fern and branch like a ripple through silk. His face was streaked with earth and ash, and his eyes, steady, calculating, betrayed no fatigue. The remaining Varnak were in disarray. Their tactical net was fractured. Chain of command, once absolute, had unraveled under the slow erosion of fear. They moved in pairs now, back to back, communicating only in low, guttural codes. Their armor, designed to intimidate, now appeared heavy, cumbersome, a burden in the oppressive heat. What once marked them as elite now made them targets. Elias studied them from above, nestled in the canopy of a sprawling lignosaur tree. The last confirmed kill had sent the group scattering, their discipline replaced by survival instinct. But now they were regrouping, a makeshift perimeter established around a small cave system, defensible and resource-rich. He understood the strategy. Dig in, regain control, wait for a shift. He wouldn't give them one. Elias marked the time. 17 minutes before the solar angle tilted enough to create a line-of-sight breach in their canopy defenses. Enough to expose their eastern flank for a split second. Enough for him to act. He checked his gear, fingers brushing over each tool, every latch and seal committed to muscle memory. His rifle had been reassembled into a carbine configuration. Lighter, faster, closer. He moved, down the tree, across wet stone, through shallow water where his boots made no splash. His breath timed with movement. The moment the sun pierced the gap in the trees, he was already inside their perimeter. The first Varnak fell without a sound, dragged backward into the underbrush, carotid sliced, and nerves cut in a single fluid motion. Elias laid him flat and took a breath. The second heard the faint rustle and turned too late. A palm to the throat, a blow to the temple. Unconscious, left alive, on purpose. A message. The third had no such luxury. He caught sight of Elias and roared a challenge, blade drawn, charging with wild abandon. It was over in seconds. A sidestep low, blade to thigh, gunstock to jaw. When a Varnak dropped to his knees, Elias drove the point of his knife under the jawline, ending it cleanly. He vanished into the jungle before the others responded. They found the unconscious warrior tied to a tree, eyes wide when he awoke, unable to speak. Inside the Galactic Council chamber, the footage was reviewed again and again. The angles were poor. Elias worked between drone blind spots, but the aftermath was clear. 2 more dead, 1 spared. The discussion grew heated. "This is not trial by combat," snarled Relkor, voice cracking with fury. "It is assassination." "He is not bound by your rituals," Ramesh replied, her tone as sharp as Elias' blade. "He was given a test of courage. Courage doesn't always shout. It should." "Then perhaps yours isn't courage at all," she said, unmoved. "Perhaps it's vanity." The Arishan queen leaned forward. "He shows restraint, strategy, purpose. He spares when others would kill. That is not weakness. That is choice." Across the stars, viewership swelled. Children mimicked his tactics and play. Military academies paused lectures to analyze his maneuvers. Elias Rourke had become something the galaxy did not understand. A silent storm, shaped by a species underestimated for too long. Back on Varos 7, night returned, and with it came the rain. Sheets of it poured from the sky in heavy curtains, drumming the canopy, creating blind spots even the drones couldn't penetrate. Elias used it like a veil, moving freely, approaching the last stronghold of the Varnak survivors. For remained. He watched them argue. The feed from a salvage drone gave him an overhead glimpse. One wanted to retreat, one to make a final charge, another insisted they wait. The 4 sat apart, wounded but alert. Elias noted his stillness. A commander, perhaps, or one who had begun to understand. He chose not to strike. Not yet. He wanted the doubt to settle deeper. The next phase required more than speed or violence. It required transformation. The following day, Elias didn't attack. He left signs instead. Marks in the mud. Tools arranged in patterns that only a trained mind would recognize. Code embedded in absence. He left food near the wounded. Cut down branches to expose starlight for night navigation. The Varnak found these and grew uneasy. They weren't traps. They weren't threats. They were communications. "What is he doing?" one council observer asked. "He's rewriting the encounter," said the Arishan queen. "He's shifting the battlefield. From kill or be killed to something older. Something deeper." Ramesh said nothing. She watched with a sense of awe laced with sorrow. Elias had gone beyond mere combat. He was crafting narrative, mythology. He wasn't just surviving. He was reshaping perception itself. By the 5th day, the rain ceased. The air grew thick with humidity, and the forest buzzed louder than ever. Elias stood on a rock shelf overlooking the Varnak encampment, his outline visible in the morning mist. He allowed the drone to see him. He raised no weapon, made no gesture of threat. One of the Varnaks stepped forward, a younger one, leaner than the rest, visibly shaken but not broken. He held his plasma weapon in one hand, slack. Elias stared at him, unmoving, imposing only by presence. And then he turned his back. He walked away. The Varnak didn't fire. That night, the drones recorded something unprecedented. The Varnak commander ordered his squad to retreat, but not through the jungle, through the path Elias had cleared, the exact trail he'd revealed with his subtle signs. The symbols were now understood. Not an invitation, not a surrender, but an acknowledgement. Rourke remained behind, atop the same rock shelf. He had passed the trial, and he had let them live. In the council chamber, chaos erupted. They fled. They survived, Ramesh corrected. Relkor slammed his claws on the podium. This invalidates everything. No, said the Arishan queen, rising. It confirms it. One human broke 10 Varnak without support, without aid, and without cruelty. He had them, and he let them go. Why? Asked a skeptical delegate. Because that is how humans define strength, Ramesh said. Not just in victory, but in the choice not to humiliate. That is the courage you asked for. The council fell silent. In orbit above Varos 7, the extraction pod descended. Elias Rourke stood motionless as it landed, scanning the trees once more before stepping inside. He said nothing, offered no salute, made no dramatic gesture. The door hissed shut, and he disappeared from the jungle that had briefly accepted him as one of its own. Back on Earth, no parades awaited him. No medals. His file remained sealed. But in dark corners of the galaxy, stories began to spread. About the jungle, and the ghost who walked it, and how the Galactic Council, once mocking, now spoke of humanity not with laughter, but with a strange and uneasy respect. Elias Rourke stood at the edge of the training field, surrounded by silence more profound than any jungle. A thin wind stirred the crimson banners of the Terran diplomatic corps, casting elongated shadows across the hard-packed clay. His uniform bore no insignia. His nameplate had been removed. There were no cameras, no media, no commanders here, just a single folding chair under an empty sky. Across from him, a Varnak delegation approached. Their gait was deliberate, their formation tight but non-aggressive. The 4 remaining warriors from the Varos 7 trial led the procession. Their armor had been modified, painted not in the sharp contrast of war, but in a subdued gradient of gray-blue, an unfamiliar shade that Elias recognized from deep forest bark. The commander among them, taller and more scarred than when last seen, carried no weapon. His claws had been dulled and capped. They stopped 10 feet from Elias. He didn't move. Then the Varnak commander knelt. Not a bow, not submission, a gesture of mutual recognition. Elias inclined his head. A breath passed, and in that space, without a single word, something fundamental shifted between species. Not friendship, not alliance, but the cessation of caricature. The council would frame it as diplomacy. Others would call it redemption. For Elias, it was simply the end of something that had never needed to begin. Later, alone in a secure debrief room beneath Geneva Protocol Command, Rourke sat opposite Admiral Catry. The Admiral studied him in silence, her fingers steepled, a digital dossier glowing in the air between them. "You altered the parameters of the trial," she said finally. "I completed the mission." "That wasn't the mission. It was once." She nodded just once. Behind her sharp features and military rigor was the briefest flicker of something else. Relief, maybe, or pride, expertly hidden. "The council now considers us capable," she said. "But they're cautious. You rattled them. They needed rattling. You've created a legend, Elias. 1 man against 10. 1 human against the best they had. No legend, he replied. Just a mirror. They saw themselves in failure. That's why it hurt. Katri leaned forward. You let 4 go. I did. Why? Elias looked past her to the faint hum of the room's wall interface. Because fear isn't what makes you win. It just makes them remember you for the wrong reasons. The Admiral closed the file. You know what's coming next, don't you? Yes. He stood. A week later, deep within Terran airspace, a council of Earth's own design convened in orbit above Titan. It included not just military leaders, but xenopsychologists, socio-political architects, and cultural tacticians. Elias Rourke sat among them in plain clothes, his presence unannounced on any roster. He listened more than he spoke. The question at hand wasn't war. It was voice. For centuries, humanity had been defined by how it survived. Now the question was how it would speak. Across the table, Dr. Ishari of the Diplomatic Thought Bureau reviewed the cultural fallout from Elias's trial. Varnak combat training has shifted structure. Their cadets now study Terran predator behaviors. Arishan warrior poets reference the Quiet One. Even Kravok blood rights have modified their definition of worthy opposition. You become cultural substrate. Elias said nothing. He sipped water. The chairman turned to him. We're deploying envoy teams. We want you to lead one. No. A pause. We expected that, the chairman said. Still, we had to ask. I'll train them, but I won't wear a diplomat's robe. Because of what they expect. Because of what I refuse to become. Later that evening, he stood alone in a Terran outpost carved into the cliffs of Olympus Mons. He stared out through reinforced glass at the Martian sky, dusk blooming across its pale, desolate curve. In the reflection of the window, he saw what others saw now. A man mythologized beyond reason. Yet to himself, he was only the result of necessity, sharpened, forged, used. And beneath all that, still human. He lifted a hand and placed it against the glass. The chill bled into his palm. There were other conflicts coming. Not just with Varnak. Not just in jungles. Some battles would be fought with ideas, others with silence. Others still in the invisible shift of generations raised under different stars. He was ready for none of them, but he would prepare those who were. Months passed. Stories of the trial continued to spread, carried on trade routes, and embedded in art, whispered in alien bars, and spoken aloud in training fields across half the mapped sectors. The Quiet One became a term of reverence. On some worlds, children took on the name Elias as a mark of courage. On others, it was used as a warning in military doctrine. If you see the eyes but hear no sound, you've already lost. Back on Earth, Elias retreated further from public life. He returned to old habits, waking before the sun, running paths with no endpoints, cooking his own food in silence. But the world wouldn't forget. A Varnak delegation visited Earth for the first time in recorded history. They requested no fanfare. Only a meeting with the Terran who had shown them what fear could be without hatred. Elias declined the formal ceremony. Instead, he met them on a forest trail in Oregon, wearing jeans and a thermal shirt. No weapons, no armor. They exchanged no formal greeting. Just walked together through pine and frost, as old soldiers might. When they parted, the youngest Varnak pressed something into Elias's palm. A broken armor plate etched with a single Terran symbol. Respect. He kept it in a drawer beneath his bed. And though he rarely dreamed, when he did, it was always of the jungle. Of rain striking leaves. Of breath held long. Of a moment, in the dark, where two enemies looked at each other and chose not to be monsters. That was the legacy he accepted. Not the war, not the victory, but the decision to become more than what the galaxy expected. And across thousands of stars, that quiet decision echoed louder than any weapon ever fired.